Welcome to today's class of conservation of plants and animals. In our last class, we have studied about the generalized idea about what you mean by biosphere, ecosystem, flora, fauna, wildlife. Then what are the consequences of the deforestation, what are the causes of deforestation. Today we will be dealing with a new topic called conservation of forest and wildlife. Now, why this topic has been taken next to what we have studied is that perhaps if you remember, the deforestation is the cause, or you can say is responsible for the natural habitat getting diminished for the wildlife, that is the wild animals. So what is the step or what are the measures that should be taken to avoid such kind of situations in which the poor animals who are living in their natural surroundings of wildlife are unable to live over there. So see, the government is taking steps, but what major steps should be taken to prevent the deforestation and to promote conservation to protect the wildlife are, say for example, at first there should be a strict ban on poaching and killing of the animals. The animals unnecessarily just for some fun sake like hunting or getting some materials with which we are making certain bags, clothes, or sometimes some belts, all these articles just from the animal skin or the animal hide, we are killing the poor animals. Sometimes you might have heard in the news that a huge elephant killed just for the tusk of the elephant. The rhinoceros horn is cut and the animal is killed because of that single horn. So poaching and killing of the animals although is banned, but strict law should be implemented so that if anybody is found guilty, should be tried and should be imprisoned or should be given a lot sort of strict punishment, which will be an example for the other people who will not be or who will feel afraid to do such kind of things. The next thing is that the deforestation should not be permitted under any circumstances by the people, and if at all government permission is there to do the deforestation or cutting down of the trees, so for every acre getting deforested, then a new acre of land should be afforested. So that should be a proper replacement of the deforested land. Then there should be establishment of certain protected areas by means of law, by means of high security, where the animals can live in their natural surroundings without being afraid of. Of course, there can be other measures also, but these are the primary measures which has to be taken into consideration for the conservation of forest or the conservation of the wild animals which are in their danger, means which are in the verge of extinction. They are becoming endangered and finally they will become extinct. Now, to do the conservation of forest and wildlife, the government has planned or set up the protected areas to protect these animals or the rarely found plants and all. And these fall under the three categories. The first one is your Biosphere Reserve, the second one is your Wildlife Sanctuary, and the third one is your National Park. So first we will take upon the Biosphere Reserve. Now what are these Biosphere Reserve? This is a diagrammatic representation of the Biosphere Reserve. You can see it, it's a huge area first of all, and it comprises of various zones, various areas being divided. Now what is the outermost zone of a Biosphere Reserve is, it is called as your transition zone. Now what do you mean by transition zone? That means now it is a transient form from that of human habitation to now to the wildlife. Now this transition zone definitely will have some human population, also some human activities like agriculture, some human settlements, some tribal people will be associated with over there in this particular region. That is why it is called the transition zone. Means from here the people gradually will start disappearing as we go deeper into the Biosphere Reserve, and if you go away from that of the transition zone, then you will find more human settlements, more developmental work in terms of human population. So transition zone is the zone where human settlements are allowed, some human activities like agriculture is allowed, but without hampering a little doing damage to the that is the environment prevailing over there. The next thing is called the buffer zone. Now this buffer zone is the one where there is no human settlement, But here some educationists, people who are associated with some research work related to some endangered species of plants and animals, they can do their work. Some tourism also can be allowed over there, but of course with proper guidelines, with proper government's permission, then only the things can be allowed over there. So here animals are are allowed to live in their free surroundings, but here human beings are allowed to see them in their natural surroundings. Okay, here there is no human settlements, here there is no agriculture, but little bit of smaller human activities like for education purpose, for research purpose, or for tourism purpose, to see the animals in their wild condition, they are allowed, but with proper legal documents of the people who are going over there. The last one is the core zone of the Biosphere Reserve. Now this core zone of the Biosphere Reserve, this is the one which is totally inhabited by only the wild animals. Here there is no involvement, or nobody is allowed into this core zone. Of course, the forest officials who are employed by that of the government and all to look after these things, any kinds of difficulties faced by these animals, any sorts of troubles and all, for treatment purpose and all, they are just free to move around. But besides this, no tourist, no educationist, no research oriented work is allowed in this core zone. So the core zone is completely core means completely devoid of any kinds of human activities. Here in the buffer zone, little bit of human activity was allowed, but in the core zone no human activity is allowed. So this is the design of a biosphere reserve, having 3 zones: transition zone, buffer zone, and that of the core zone. Now in your book, what is being described, the biosphere reserve, that is your Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. Now this Punchbody Biosphere Reserve, this example which is taken in your book is your Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. Now this Punchbody Biosphere Reserve, why is it so important is that it has a national park and it has 2 sanctuaries. Okay, Bori sanctuary is there, then your Punchbody sanctuary is there, and national park is your Satpura National Park, and it is also having certain kind of historical things associated with that of it, and it has some species or some organisms which are found in the Western Ghats as well as in the Himalayas. So it has a unique combination of organisms which are found over in the Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. That is why it has been taken into your studies, and it is being noticed that some organisms are specially found in this Punchbody Biosphere Reserve which nowhere else is found. We call those organisms to be your endemic organisms. Okay, you will find this topic endemic species in your book. Now endemic means which are confined to a particular area, which nowhere else you're going to find, but of course in that particular area. Now with such endemic organisms are found in Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. If somebody asks you in terms of flora means, of course I told you the last day, that means the plants associated with the forest. So flora which are endemic in the Punchbody Biosphere Reserve is your that is your wild mango, okay, sal. So these are the various kinds of that is your endemic plant species which are found in Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. And if you talk about the animal species, that is a fauna which are found endemic into the, in this Punchbody Biosphere Reserves, then they include your giant squirrel, flying squirrel, bison. So these are endemic to that of your Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. So this is what you have to study from that of the Biosphere Reserve. What do you mean by Biosphere Reserve? See, Biosphere Reserve is quite a big compared to that of sanctuary and national park, because it involves, Biosphere Reserve has sanctuaries and national parks. So these two are the parts of this. So definitely the area wise, if you consider, the definitely area wise Biosphere Reserve is much more greater compared to that of the next two. And of course, why we have taken Punchbody Biosphere Reserve, the reason I told you that they have 2 sanctuaries and 1 national park associated with it, some historically important things which is related to that of human evolution. All those caves painting and all those things are also found over there. And then of course the wildlife which is associated over there is unique in the Punchbody Biosphere Reserve, which are endemic. So the endemic plants and animals, even you will find there special type of jamun trees, okay, in case of your this Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. So all these things are so unique to this that protection is required for this Punchbody Biosphere Reserve. We have to protect our heritage also, the traditional cave paintings and all those things which tell us about the human civilization. Also the species one which are endemic there, if they are not protected well, then they will become endangered and finally they can become extinct also. So for this very reason, the Punchbody Biosphere Reserve is focused or highlighted in your syllabus of this conservation of plants and animals. Next we will move on to the topic that is your wildlife sanctuary. The wildlife sanctuaries, which are actually the part of the biosphere reserves, are generally meant for protecting the animals which are in the verge of extinction, which are actually has become endangered, and if the steps are not taken, then they can become extinct one day. Now keeping those things in mind, the wildlife sanctuaries which are made or which are declared by that of the government in India, in total we have 500 that is your wildlife sanctuaries. As far as biosphere reserves are concerned, I forgot to tell you that there are 14 biosphere reserves in India, and as far as the wildlife sanctuaries are concerned, they are 500 in number. Okay, so these are 500 in number. These are 500 in number, the wildlife sanctuary. The animals which are protected over there, these includes your rhinoceros, this includes your elephant, then this includes your gharials, and then marsh crocodiles. So many animals are there which are protected in this wildlife sanctuaries with a proper protection, total ban on hunting and poaching, and also with tight security over there. The next thing which we should understand or we should learn is about the national parks. Now the national parks are the one which are important in the sense that not only here the animals are residing in their natural habitat or the natural conditions, but along with that of the animals, some historically important places are also associated with that. Like for example, I told you in case of your Punchbody Biosphere Reserve, the national park Satpura National Park are having the rock shelters and the rock caves, so which are very much important to understand the human civilization, how from the early man the progression was made and the human beings gradually turned out to be what they are presently. So that way we need to protect those heritage. These are our national heritage, so culturally they are quite enriched in that way. So that's the reason why national parks are very important in terms of protection of wildlife. Not only that, but also for our cultural heritage. Now as far as the national parks are considered, there are many national parks which are existing in India. Almost 80 national parks are there. Then you will find also that the names of certain biosphere reserves and names of certain wildlife sanctuaries, like wildlife sanctuary like Rajiv Gandhi Wildlife Sanctuary is there. Then if you talk Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary is there. So different types of sanctuaries are there. You need to at least memorize 3 names from each category. 3 names for biosphere reserves, 3 names for your sanctuaries, and 3 for your national park. Like if you see the map of the Punchbody Biosphere Reserve, there itself you are going to get the national park's name Satpura National Park, isn't it? So Sundarban is also a kind of national park. So there different types of national parks name you will be getting. So memorize any 3 national parks, and of course what is the difference between that of the Biosphere Reserve, like that of your wildlife sanctuary, and like that of your national parks, and also how many numbers of Biosphere Reserves are there in India, how many numbers of wildlife sanctuaries are there in India, and how many numbers of national parks are there in India. So that's all for today's class. I hope you have understood up to this much. Next day we will continue further.